Hello, guys. Welcome everyone to the next Echoes talk. Can you all hear me? Can I get a tester in the chat, please? Anyone saying anything? Okay, they can hear. All good, all good, all good. Hello, everyone. Hello, Nina, Marco. Nice to see you. Ashtarothi in the chat and in the actual stream. So we have an extra special guest today. Just like to start off by letting everyone know that we're actually going to be talking about Alpha Omega and our opinions on this Alpha Omega and how we could maybe possibly make it a little bit better by giving our opinions and feedback to the developers. As you can see, there's Alpha Omega written all over the stream right now, so you don't forget what we're actually talking about. So first, I just want to introduce Doomsy. You remember him from the last Echoes talk. So if Doomsy, if you want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction quickly for everyone.
Hey guys, I am the co-founder of OpForce. I'm here to represent them, and I am from America, and that's all you really need to know.
Bloody-tastic. And we have Fish next up. Everyone knows Fish. Everyone should know Fish.
Hey guys, yeah, I've been an Eve Echoes evangelist for quite some time now, so really looking forward to its release. But yeah, we're fellow moderators in the Discord and look into how we can enhance the Eve community.
Fantastic. And we're moving on to Sambridge.
Hello, I'm Sambrig. I'm a co-CEO of Trimark Heavy Industries. We're an industrial nullset corp. Yeah, pretty much it.
Cool. Thank you very much. And Ashtarothi.
Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi. I am the commander of the Convocation of Empyreans, and of course, I stream pretty frequently. I'll just put it that way.
Yes, and Ashtarothi just came out of nowhere and just decided, and then Fish said, "Oh, do you want to get him on stream?" I said, "Yes," and there's actually, if any of you know EVE Online, he's actually a very well-known streamer for EVE Online as well. And I guess the next part we're going to go on to, Doomsy, did you give your little introduction to Opposing Force Alliance?
I did not, but I can.
Yeah, if you want to chuck that in there quickly so everyone knows.
Sure. Okay. So, OpForce, the opposing force. I am one of the two leaders. Finmir being the big man himself who created the entire thing and brought me on. We are a anti-Blue Donut Corporation alliance conglomeration. Just a collective effort to prevent one alliance from taking over the game. And if we are the alliance that takes over the game, please kill us. If we don't kill ourselves first.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Voxel, for the bits. And thank you guys for the follows. Appreciate it very much so. So let me just get my notes up because I am losing my mind right now. Right, so what we have so far. Stream manager's up. I can actually read what you're writing now. Blue donut is bad. Blue donut is bad. So after basically what we're going to talk about mainly today is the Alpha and Omega and what the limits are on these. Because there are quite a few limits for the Alpha characters. How many Alphas have we got in chat at the moment? How many of you guys are actually looking to play as an Alpha from the day one? I don't think there's many. Of most of the people that I play with are pretty much going for Omega. 420 is going for Alpha straight away. In the left corner, Alpha players. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So the Alphas have an actual lockout. So what they have basically what you would say. I wouldn't say that it was really bad, but I'm like mincing my words so I don't piss off any Alpha players, which is making it very bad for me. But basically what you have here, we can see on the screen. Dun, dun, dun. There we go, and it's just popped up. So we have the list of the actual stuff that's unlocked. So we have industry and selling items on the market. I don't know if you guys have actually ever seen this list. Like in EVE Online, it would probably be unheard of to stop someone selling on the market, right, Ash?
Yeah, even on EVE Online, the proper PC game, there is I think there was originally restrictions or like an extra tax put onto Alpha accounts, and there's restrictions on how many orders that they can maintain at one time. But yeah, Alphas have always been able to at least sell on the market. Doing that, not being able to do that would be like considered an integral part of the game.
And a lot of people have been saying that as well in the Discord, that it is a pretty big deal. But didn't they just add something that really restricts alphas on the market in EVE Online? Like what they took out 0.1 isking or something? I couldn't really remember
The
what it
Plex
was.
market.
Right. There's been a big change to the way that markets work, such that individual orders can only have 4 significant digits. So if an order is like 1,000,000 ISK, then the most that it can be changed by, any given order can be from the rest of them is like by 1,000, basically. So it made it so that there's a minimum adjustment size for orders, and then at the same time, they also applied additional taxes to the situation. And I believe it is true that alphas don't get all of the skills that it would take to mitigate those taxes, and therefore they would technically spend more in order to do the orders.
That sounds like a good compromise, really, if you're looking to sort of limit RMT, I guess. I guess that's what they were trying to do. I know they did that massive bot rush where they just booted everyone they thought was a bot off of EVE Online, and it made the Plex prices drop significantly.
Would it, if I could explain maybe a little bit about like the theory behind Alpha and Omega,
Yes.
as it
Perfect.
has kind of stood in EVE and in other games too. So free to play is obviously a very popular model when it comes to getting the maximum number of people into a game, because it alleviates the boundary of having to pay money in order to play the game. However, games still need funding, and so they develop various different monetary methods. And in the case of MMOs in particular, you will have basically some players that are paying and some players that are not. And in a lot of those games, or in a lot of games, in order to keep it balanced, consumers end up being, or sorry, the free-to-play accounts end up being consumers only. Because if you think about it, you're combating the nature of infinity, right? If you can have free accounts, you can have as many of them as you want.
Yes.
So anything involving industry, anything involving production, anything involving creating something, especially if it's out of nothing, has a problem if you allow alphas to do it. And furthermore, anything you allow alphas to do, you can no longer really effectively restrict how many of that thing any given player can do.
Yes.
So there's a skill that restricts how many market orders you can have. And if alphas can interact with the market just as effectively as an omega could, then that would basically trivialize the value of that skill that allows an omega to have more orders, because you just have more alphas.
100%. So wouldn't taking selling to a market off and away from alphas actually help it? Or do you think it will be bad?
Well, so some of these restrictions are so this is saying that you can't sell any items on the market whatsoever?
Yes, but at the moment, we put an idea forward that the devs are actually taking quite seriously. It was basically it would stop an alpha being able to sell and buy in nullsec in the what they call ITCs, which is the basic trade hubs of nullsec, where you build your actual like trade hub in nullsec. You probably already know about this stuff, but they were going to cut off selling and buying in nullsec and only allow you to sell and buy in lowsec and highsec.
I mean, that's an idea. The thing is that one of the keys is that only one character in this case would need to be Omega, right?
Yes.
So in this scenario, you could have a single Omega character that functions as kind of like the hub, the central spoke. So that way the alphas can be doing the work, and then it basically gets funneled through the Omega, who can do the sales and the transactions. So an organized group could actually get around this restriction pretty easily.
Yeah, but there's no contracts and no player trading.
Well, that makes it a little bit more tricky. So that so that makes it so that alphas cannot contribute to the whole. I honestly believe that this is just to allow them to have some basic control over the economy. the impact of free players being able to pour outward, as opposed to simply consuming. Because like, if alphas are restricted to simply consumption, then that means that the more alphas there are, the more demand there is for those things to consume, which is actually really good and healthy for the game.
Yes.
But if there is an infinite number of production, then that actually like destroys huge portions of the game.
It really does, yeah, 100%. The amount, if you pour a load of stuff in, everything becomes cheaper and everything becomes easier. Thank you for the follow, Robosi. Thank you very much. Thank you. What do you think, Doomsy? What's your opinion on the whole Omega Alpha lockout and the idea that they could maybe block out just nullsec and allow sales in low sec and high sec?
I think that the structure they're going for is probably for the best if we want to see a microtransaction-free Eve Echoes for longer than a few months.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main reason I support it, is that I don't want to see Eve turn into this mobile game inflicted with microtransactions where whales pull ahead of others off of cash alone. Now that's saying I am a whale myself, so
Yes, I was about to say.
But I also understand that in a game like Eve, whales would take off because there's guys who would just sell their EVE Online accounts or just sell things on EVE Online for money and then just transfer it to EVE Echoes. And I think that would kill the game. So I favor the paid system as the way it is, or the way that you were discussing. Both of them are amicable in my opinion, because it would prevent that microtransaction market from becoming a necessity so much as just selling skins or little aesthetic things.
Yeah.
Secondarily, the lockout, I feel like it's a marketing tactic to just kind of encourage more people to purchase Omega to like get the full experience of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 50-50 on that one.
It is a bit for me. I'm on the same fence. I don't feel like they're trying to. I mean, oh, thank you for the sub, Apollo. Thank you. Thank you for the sub as well, Sheldon or Shydon. I can never tell because you spell Shell with 2 capital I's. So we'll call you May. You're May in Discord, so we'll go with that. Basically, what I don't see them trying to force people to buy Omega. I don't see it that way in certain respects, because the way if you've spoken to Exile one-on-one like I have and seen how much he cares about Echoes itself, it's really quite, it's like he's excited to first play EVE Online again, because he started back in 2003. So he's so excited. He's like a small child. It's like talking to another player who's so excited about the game. So I don't feel like he would push it in there just to make money. But at the end of the day, it is a business. I mean, we see it as games, but games are created to make money. They're not created for complete enjoyment. They are the sort of 60-40. Because if it's not 60-40, games are not enjoyable and there's no point in even playing them. But I don't feel like they're gonna try to drain us for all of our cash.
I have another point about this, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, you do not need to sell on the market to engage with EVE Online.
No.
I don't know how much things are gonna like transfer over mechanically, for example, but like for instance, in Eve, you can melt down the modules that you collect. So rather than sell them, you can just melt them down into their component minerals and then use that to build something else. So there could be some other way to reclaim value out of your stuff rather than selling on the market, and therefore affecting the paid players who are relying on that market for interesting and engaging gameplay. Also, though, stuff stockpiles. So you could actually just build up stuff and then go Omega for a short period of time and just dump everything on the market. And then if you don't make enough money, you can just, fall back. But the key to that is the make enough money part, right?
Yeah.
Which is that these activities that end up providing semi-passive incomes, or non-active incomes, I should say, generally get avoided for the free-to-play stuff, because they want you, if you are going to pay with your in-game effort, then it would be useful to them that effort be activity generating actions.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, what is the roadmap of an alpha player likely to be? You know, when we're looking at like let's say it's genuine alpha player who's experiencing E for the first time and they don't want to pay for it yet, what are they going to see when they first turn up to the game? What are they actually going to be able to do?
So talking to the devs, they can do everything up to like selling. They can do all of the missions, they can do all the ratting, you can mine. There are mining missions, so it's not like you have to sell the ore. You can actually do the mission to collect the ore, so you can test the mining out. That won't be locked. The only thing I know that you can't try for sure is industry. Like, you can't build anything, which is a weird one. Like, I found that quite weird that they didn't just lock it to one build order. Like, why lock out a big part of the game for a large amount of players?
Again, the problem is that if the number is above 0.
Yeah.
Sorry?
You can build without the skill, and having only one build slot, if you wanted to take that to an infinity number of accounts, that would be tedium to the point of ridiculous. No one would ever want to do that. Even a botter would be like, why would I even bother coding for that?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. That being said, it is easier to build a bot to run a bunch of clients on an Android, or better yet, a bunch of like simulated instances than it is for like a full Eve client.
But in terms of an alpha player, like a low-skilled player, how long do you reckon it would take to actually earn in-game cash to be able to purchase your first Omega 1 sub? I don't think it would take all that long. Maybe like a week.
To get the first Omega. Thank you for the news. Thank you for the subs. Thank you for the sub. Something popped up here. Oh, got some Jesus! Someone gifted subs. Thank you for the gifted subs, Apollo. I don't like. That's the first time this ever happened.
Dispensing gratitude. Gratitude.
There's a lot of stuff coming out. Thank you for the gifted subs, Apollo. Really appreciate it. So basically, like, we don't know yet. They don't, without knowing how much Plex will cost or sell for, we cannot generate an amount of time it would take for someone to go from alpha to omega. We go by EVE Online.
It's player-based.
Yeah, because it's player-based. So the more people buy, the more and less people buy, that makes the price what it is. So we can't really guess it until at the start. It's going to be stupidly expensive because everyone's going to be like, oh my god, we're going to sell the Plex, but no one can buy the Plex. So it will start off really high and then drop to almost nothing, so people make money off of it, and then it will steadily rise and equalize maybe 6 months in, give or take, if it works. Maybe a bit less, maybe 3 months, it will start to neutralize to a point where people are just steadily buying that way and it will turn into an actual market. But until then, we just can't guess. Like, I know how long it will take for a alpha clone to reach the maximum tier 7. It will take them 101 days. That's like over 3 months it will take them to max out until they can't skill anymore in the tier level in trees.
Yeah, I definitely.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say. By the way, I'm for Fish. I'm representing Obsidian, so go OBS. I am Team Omega. I really think that actually players who are wanting to have this concept of a free game, I mean, that's what we've already been introduced to with all these other mobile games, and it's been a trash experience. So it's like, guys, I think everyone's kind of freaking out. One, we got to remember, this game is not going to be perfect when it comes out. It's going to have some flaws, but I do think that the devs have been seriously taking our feedback. So, we won't know until we kind of are able to test out the system and see how it works. But I do also feel like that we need to remember, if it doesn't work, I do think they're going to listen to us and they're going to make those changes. And then I also think that in terms of alpha versus omega, I mean, I personally would prefer my team to be mostly omega, because those are people who have skin in the game. Those are people who are investing their time. And I feel like they're going to be better quality players. Like, I've already been introduced to the players who want everything for free, and they're often not that great. Like, to be honest, like, they don't stick with the team. I mean, obviously, granted, there's some people who can't always necessarily afford a game, but this game is like a lifestyle. It's like a hobby, and every hobby has its price. I mean, you pay, if you like sports, there's just things that you pay for. So this idea that this game is going to be free, I think we need to change our perception. And that's the way that mobile games are going to be able to change their stigma. If we continue to always expect this to be free, it's never going to change.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. I think we had this conversation before where we were saying it should have been called a free trial and not free to play, because it's really not free to play, because you're locked out of like a big portion of the game itself. So it was kind of weird. And thank you for the subs as well, Apollo. More and more, please. Please be careful with how many you give out, good sir. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
What does NetEase gain out of actually having a free-to-play model at all? Why not just have Omega 1 and 2? Just abolish the free play.
So speaking to Exile and speaking to a few other developers, like, it's industry standard to have a free-to-play model. I believe if it wasn't, this game wouldn't have it at all. It would have alpha, free trial, Omega. But it has to have the because if you look at a game, most consumers will go into the mobile market, especially MMOs in general, even on PC. I play all of them. They all have some sort of like, they all have different, but they're all starting to move towards the free-to-play sort of aspect and pay more to get quicker and faster and more access to stuff. Star Wars: The Old Republic is one of them that I played for a long time, which had a lot of lockouts, like a lot. But you unlocked everything with a monthly sub, which is what they're going for, I guess, with this one. It's a much better free-to-play than I've seen in a lot of other games. For instance, Black Desert Mobile, where that game is literally disgusting when it comes to their monetization. Disgusting.
To the point as to why, though, the answer is actually quite simple, which is that a lot of MMOs have transitioned to this idea of like, basically you're playing a single player RPG together. And so it really doesn't matter how many people are playing that game. You know, if I boot up Aeon and play it, I can actually get 90% of the Aeon experience, regardless of whether or not I'm on a server with anyone else, you know?
Yes.
But Eve isn't like that. Eve relies on interaction between players to remain interesting, and therefore it behooves CCP and whoever else is running Eve to ensure the maximum number of players in the system as possible. So if a chunk of them is willing to pay, then that's fine. But the rest of them, they're free to come in and be content too.
It's true. But then the point comes to the fact that a lot of the player base will be those free-to-play players. And with, like, I don't know if it's going to be the same with Echoes, but in previous games that I've played, they're the biggest voice. And then developers stop creating a game for players and start creating and molding the game for a more free-to-play playstyle, which actually screws over the people that pay, and then the game dies. So I've seen many games die because they're focusing on free-to-play players and not actual people who are paying towards the game.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, again, going back to how involved these devs are with their community, why wouldn't you not want to support that? That's where I can't wrap my head around it, is these people are working their ass off to create this amazing game. And I do think, like you said, these games get shaped around these free-to-play players, but I don't know. I think it's kind of like reversed. Like, we should be focusing on building more of a community in terms of we need to support each other. Speaking of supporting, if you guys haven't become a Patreon of Saw, content creation is not free. But in all serious, I mean, we all need to support each other. That's why we love the community. We love the content. And they are providing this unique platform and opportunity for us to get to have our little simulation, our stories, our experiences. I'm not super knowledgeable of EVE Online, but just listening to the history, it's incredible. And I'm excited to have a mobile game that I can have a story build, because in other mobile games, our stories finished before they even started, because as soon as we got invested in the game died from gross monetization, and it just completely removed the strategy. So as long as the payment style doesn't remove strategy for me, I'm all for paying for the devs. I mean, hey, I'll even buy merchandise from the devs. I'll buy sweaters, whatever they need to continue making a great game, as long as it doesn't remove the strategy from the game. That's what matters to me.
I just saw a comment in here that we're making people feel bad for playing alpha. We're not trying to make you feel bad for playing alpha. We're just sort of putting all of the chips on the table and seeing it from all different perspectives. The game needs alpha players because there's a massive chunk of like the player base will come from alpha players. That's where it's going to come from. A lot of our friends will be alpha players. A lot of the corps will be filled with alpha players. I hope it doesn't quite I hope it doesn't get to the point where corps will actually stop people from joining them because they're alpha players, because they don't contribute in some way. I hope it doesn't go that way. Like, don't get us wrong when we're talking about, like, we don't think everyone should pay for it. My preferred payment method of any game is buy to play. Buy the game as a whole and play it for free. That's how I like the Guild Wars 2. That's my favorite form of monetization for MMOs. Buy the whole game, play it. Buy the DLC, play it. Buy the expansions, play it. Like, that's my personal way of doing it. Like, the monthly subs, I feel eventually will die. Like, they're starting to die out already, and now for some reason in the past year or so they've started to crop up again, but they were dying before, which is why free to play versions of games were invented in the first place, because people weren't willing to pay anymore, and the people that were willing to pay started to not wanting to play because there was no one playing the game. So it just kind of went that way.
I think one of the
It's worth
reasons why
noting-
Eve never went that way is because the game has lasted for like decades, and as being a single shard server, you can't afford to have people not get the DLC. You know, you can do skins and all other basic monetization stuff. That's, you know, but you can't really exclude people from content because they haven't purchased something.
I believe that they can, like, stop people from doing certain parts of the game if, as Ashtrathi said before, that, like, if you allow a whole infinite amount of things into industry, for example, where they don't have to pay anything, it's going to really screw some shit up. If I was correct in understanding what you were saying earlier, Ash.
Yeah, in actual Eve, like the, gosh, I hate to say it in a way that makes it sound like it's like the more real Eve. That isn't what I mean, but I mean, like,
Well, it is
in
right
the
now because there's no
Eve-
Eve Echoes.
yeah, exactly. So in the Eve Online PC game, the restrictions on alphas are almost exclusively done through skills.
Yes.
They limit what skills that the alphas have access to, and that has a consequence of limiting them to certain things. You know, if you can't train the Tech 2 skill, you can't, or if you can't apply the Tech 2 skill, then you can't apply the Tech 2 ship. And that's about the short of it. You know, I can't think of anything that technically an alpha should be able to do, but they can't just because CCP said, no, you can't because you're an alpha.
Yes. I agree.
But in contrast, Eve Echoes, you can do anything you want so long as you have the tier level, because skills are all about making yourself more effective at the ability, not the ability itself.
Yeah, it's a weird lock-in system. Like, I found it very strange at first, where you're literally locked out through complete time. So if you fill your skill queue up and have it full all the time, you won't be able to fly. Like, in EVE Online, you can, I want that ship, I'm going to skill towards that ship, and you can get to that ship as quickly as possible. For everyone who has their skill queue full, it will take the same amount of time for everyone to get into that ship. It's like tiered. It's a very strange way of doing it. I got used to it at the end of the beta, but it still felt very strange to me being an EVE Online player. It's just very strange.
It was weird because overnight, every single person in the game suddenly flew retrievers.
Yeah. Like, it's going to happen. It's exactly going to happen that way during launch. The Omega players are going to get it a hell of a lot quicker than the Alpha players, which is the next point we should talk about, because we've been talking about this one for quite some time. So the next point is the $5 and $15 for the Omegas. What are your thoughts on that, Doomsy?
I can afford it, so I'm not complaining. The benefits, the benefits are there. I think it's going to cause a bit of a divide. There's probably going to be a little bit of a Eve clone race wars, but I think that over time it'll balance. That no matter if you get ahead and you use the tier 2 subscription to get to tier 7, 200 days faster, it's a 200-day lead. 200 days later, they're right there, and
Yes.
you're not tier 8 yet. You're not tier 9 yet. And if you are, it's not long until they catch up. It's only a head start for a little while. And then after that, the ground gets leveled, and you're no longer in your perspective superior because they're the same tier as you. Took them longer to get there, but they're there.
True. That is very true. And how do you feel about that one, Sam? How do you feel about the 5 and 15? Do you think it's too much, too little?
I think it's good. I think a lot of people are going to treat it as though they're going to basically go Omega 2 for the whole purchase the game, because we're looking at a new universe. It's a race, and everyone's going to want that leg up first thing. So everyone's going to go Omega 2 if they can afford it. I think it's very affordable. I think $5 a month for the Omega 1 is going to allow for a lot of people to choose many different alts for alternate skilling paths. That's personally what I'm going to be doing. So especially when it comes to something like CEO positions, people are going to want to actually train up an alt purely to do CEO training initially, just so they can find space for their core piece. So that's something that I'm happy to have. And I think that ultimately Alpha, Omega 1, they're only temporary. People are going to find their ways in-game to earn the cash they need to get to Omega 2 if they want it, or they're going to stay with Omega 1 if they want it. They're going to still use the in-game currency to be able to get there.
100%. One second, Marco made a very good point. If a group of people went Omega 2 from the start, and the catching up point of where players will be on the same level as you eventually kind of becomes void if they continue to add tiers, if there's never a ceiling. So people continue, and if it's a business, they're going to continue to add ceiling to it so that Omega 2 still matters to make more sales, I guess.
I guess it depends on what the point of the ceiling is. Like, if you're talking about everyone getting into battleships, yeah, sure, everyone's going to be able to skill into battleships quicker than other people, but if they can't build them yet, or if they can't service them, if you can't actually get capital ships yet, you can fly them or you have the tier level for it, okay, but if you can't do everything else, it's still pointless. The other thing is they've indicated they're not going to release capital ships until a later stage in the game, when everyone's actually had the ability to develop themselves into nullsec life or whatever choice they're going for in game. So it's going to be a case of people's skill points are actually going to be ahead of the other logistics around being in those kinds of ships.
Yeah, you make a good point. What do you think, Fish?
I think $15 is super affordable. Actually, just looking at Stellaris Galaxy Command, they have a battle pass for $10, and then they have their $30 for their battle pass elite. Then they also have a subscription for $15 per month and a year subscription for $100. I mean, people spend money in mobile games, and having those microtransactions, I think people don't realize you actually spend way more money in the long run by all those little microtransactions, because it's like you lose track of how much you're spending. So I think a lot of people will actually not realize that they might be spending less than if they go for these types of subscription models versus these, I call them the fuck you packs, but these like packages where they run ads to you. I mean, as someone who works in marketing, I know exactly how they do app ads. They can track your kind of common interests and target ads, and a lot of these games kind of almost look like they are designing the game around how they run their ads. So it's I think $15 is completely affordable. I do think it's people are gonna cry a little bit about some of the advantage or not, but I do think maybe we can convince netties to do gift cards, and then who knows, maybe your significant other will buy you some flex.
I actually asked that question to Melos and Exile yesterday. If we can gift Omega to other people, to our friends in corps and stuff like that, and if we can, like, eventually what's going to happen is there'll be corps with so much money that they can just plex a load of their own players. So like if they want to get above and they have 40 of the 200 alpha players, and they have enough money to send each of those 40 alpha players ISK to Plexo's 40, then they have 200 Omega players. Like, it seems like it could be an option.
Well, it's definitely something I'm going to be doing for competition rewards and milestone rewards. You know, when we get started, if we find someone who's going beyond the Call of Duty, we will reward him somehow, and most likely it'll be Plex.
Fantastic. I mean, that should be the way that most clans. I mean, you'll have the occasional court where you'll join them and it'll be like, give me your taxes, and then you can just do whatever you want. But like, I feel that it's going to be different with the tight-knit 200-man cap, like a 200-man corp cap. I think it'll be, although the bigger alliances are going to find ways. There'll always be ways, but I mean, 15 is... Do you believe that just 25 extra skill points a minute, or 20 extra skill points a minute is worth the extra $10?
Yes.
For me, as someone who's new, yes.
Considering how many minutes are in a day, absolutely.
Because there's like I don't know if you saw the video I put out of how long it takes, the differences to get to tier 9 is like 6 months shorter for an Omega 2 than it is for an Omega 1.
The other thing is, when you're looking at rewards and benefits in a mobile game, quite often you're looking at a high cost, let's say $10, for a very short-term reward, let's say 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours of gameplay. We're talking about $10 extra for a month of beneficial gameplay.
Okay.
Which in layman is 864,000 skill points excess.
It's a lot.
A lot of these same concerns were brought up within the EVE community as we transition to free to play.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we have found, and I want to actually give the caveat that I don't know all of the differences between EVE Echoes and EVE Online, so maybe some of these are going to break what I'm about to say, but like in general, EVE Online has very successfully transitioned to free to play for the exact same reasons why so many other things in EVE work out when put in EVE that don't work out in other games, because of things like the permadeath system and the skill system and the way that they're arranged make it so that it doesn't matter how much you quote unquote bought power. Ultimately, if you don't have the skill or experience to back it up, that the decision to just simply throw money at it will actually be punished rather than rewarded in EVE.
Yes.
It'd be interesting to see the same kind of thing happen here, where even if you can use tier 7 equipment, you may not necessarily be doing that all the time, right?
Yes.
Because this isn't just about bringing your best thing to the table and hitting them with it, because if you lose it, that's you only want to put onto the table, you only want to ante up what you have to. So as you increase in skill points, you increase in options for sure, but a person with a lot of skill training can very much be defeated by somebody with not a lot of skill training if the person without as much skill training simply knows how to use their equipment better, or understands the rules and how to get an edge on their opponent. So the thing is that a lot of these concerns were not realized in EVE, because the very nature of the EVE universe itself and the other rules of the MMO make it so that those things end up being okay. And like, while it is very common for people to believe that, you want to go Omega, and everybody, like, they call Alpha the unlimited trial in EVE even, but I know a lot of players that have made it through Alpha or been an Alpha player for several months successfully. Because not only does having Omega, like having an Omega right away, if you just buy Omega straight up, you don't actually access anything new.
Nope.
You're training the exact same skills. In fact, you're just giving up your free skill training. You're training twice as fast, and that's basically your only real advantage. So I know a lot of people that spend the first few months just taking their time training as an Alpha player, getting all of the skills that they can get as an Alpha player, then going Omega once they have a grasp for things.
It's definitely a good way of doing it. They definitely did do it very well, but like some of the numbers that I saw last year were pretty disheartening. Like the number was released, there was like 600,000 players, and 80 or 90% of them quit before the first 7 days.
That's just Eve. That's not the free-to-play model.
No, I'm not saying it's a free-to-play model.
Actually,
I'm just
as a
saying
matter of
it
fact,
was
those
horrible.
numbers were seen as a triumph because 5 years ago it was 97% of people quit within the first 2 weeks.
Holy shit. I don't even.
Injury here. So I mean, alpha could just be players that are in a different stage of the funnel that they want to dip their toes in, but they're not ready to fully dive on in. I mean, for me personally, I'm ready to fully dive on in because I've done my due diligence. I've met this community, and I've seen a huge opportunity to like really build something, and that's what I'm excited to invest my time into.
Very true, very true. Right, so we're actually going to move on to the next part of today's actual live stream. We're going to actually bring a couple of the community in for a conversation on Alpha Omega. We have one guy who's going to be defending Alpha, one guy defending Omega, and one guy who's neutral, because I'm pretty sure that all of us here will probably buy Omega. So it's kind of unfair to have the conversation because we're all Omega pilots. You bear with me 1 second, we'll just get this over here. Everyone should be ready. Oh, Rax just sent me a message. He's saying he can't make it today. That's a shame. Right, so I'm just going to move everyone down. I'm going to move the other guys up, if that's okay with everyone.
Cool. Thank you.
Bye-bye. So if you guys got any questions in chat that I'm willing to answer, I can answer any questions that you like while we're doing this transitional stuff, so please let me know. Hey Lounge, how's it going, man?
What's up?
Welcome to the chat. Do you want to give yourself a little introduction there, sir?
Yeah, I'm lounge around, and so I played EVE Online back in 2008 for a brief period, and I got back into it because of EVE Echoes, and pretty much all I do in EVE Online is hunt, explore.
Very nice, very nice. Exploring, we lost you a little bit there at the end. I don't know if push to talk went down or not. I think we lost. Oh, there we go. He's back again.
No. Push to talk probably messed up. No, I said that I hunt explorers for the most part.
He sends us all of the pictures in our Discord all the time of all the stuff that he's killed. It's quite hilarious sometimes. Right, let's bring in also. We'll bring in. I can't pronounce his name. He said he said what it was, and I can't pronounce his name at all. So you're gonna have to introduce yourself there, sir. Oh, he's gonna make me do it, innit? Oh, Gika's gone again. Gisha Forsha. He told me how it's spelt, and I could not do it, and I don't want to ruin it for him. So we'll actually bring Soapy McTwatface into the actual fucking idiot. This is Astro Meat.
Hello?
Hey Astro, how's it going, man?
Yeah, not too bad, buddy. How are you?
Not too bad. And you're going to be fighting for the Alpha side, correct?
To a certain extent, I'm sure. I'm always up for a fight.
Cool. Let's see if we can get Gika back in here and Crazy Swede. Gika, are you in here? Are you working? Is it working now? Okay, he's gone again. It's not working for him. It's down, so let's bring in the Crazy Swede. Hello, Mr. Crazy Swede. How's it going? Is this not working either? Mr. Crazy Swede? Crazy Swede! Okay.
Let's see.
There we go. It's working. Jesus. There we go. Welcome, Crazy.
Yeah.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. Sorry, my Twitch is being a twit, so I'm having a bit of issues. I'll try my best here.
No worries.
Right. So I am Crazy Swede. I am a soon-to-be content creator for EVE Echoes. I am also an officer of TEMA, or TMHI, under Sam.
See.
And I am also a member of the Convocation of Empyreans under Ash in EVE Online. I've been playing EVE Online since beta, and I've been playing Eve Echoes since Alpha.
Okay.
And I am supposedly the meat in this happy sandwich that is Alpha and Omega.
Fantastic, fantastic. Right,
I'll try my best.
So Crazy, being on the fence in the middle, what are your opinions on the Alpha and Omega?
Right, I see. I see benefits and drawbacks with this system as it is proposed. I think it is needed to have the restrictions of an alpha, but I think the restrictions that are put in as we see them for now is a bit too much. Because I think the alphas need a little bit more of the game, access to the game, in order to facilitate a higher rate of transfers into Omega, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense, yeah.
So basically that's my stance to start with. Then we'll see where the conversation takes us, yeah?
So, Lounge, what do you think, being on the Omega side? Do you hate alpha players or do you like them?
No, I think alpha players actually have like an integral part into the entire thing. I just don't see an issue with the cost of the Omega. It is relatively, and it's relatively cheap for the content that you get. And I think, as a Fish had said earlier, that wow, brain fart.
It's okay.
Anyway, yeah, the microtransactions. She was talking about the microtransactions in other games, how you could spend thousands of dollars on like a Farmville or whatever the hell, and you basically get nothing for it. You just keep throwing money at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. What do you think, Soapy? What do you reckon about you being an alpha player? How do you feel like having the Omega, like differences and changes and being locked out of industry and selling items actually is a big hindrance? And Soapy's gone, moving back to the office. Everything's going to shit. Right, so Lounge, do you... Sorry, go on.
So do you mean me? The Discord names are getting confusing. You didn't use my full name, that's why.
You named yourself Soapy McTwatface.
I think you called me that first.
I did, yeah.
I mean, I think the 5 years to begin with is spot on. I think having the alpha players is important to essentially funnel them eventually into Amiga. But there needs to be enough of a draw. They need to be able to see the game as a whole. I mean, one thing is, as it stands, what the fuck are you going to do if you mine? Are you just going to look at your ore? I mean, you can't sell it. You can't build anything with it. Yeah. And so introducing people into industry, as much as I like blowing up Care Bears, they're really important so they can give me things to blow them up with. If they don't get to experience that even in a really limited fashion, i.e., hey, you can build your first couple of frigates and you can only build one a day or something, just to make it balanced so that people can see what that side is. Yeah. It can't really be abused. So, okay, you can have one slot, one build slot. It takes like a day to build a frigate or a destroyer, and that's it. And if you couple that with heavy restrictions on the market, so perhaps alpha players could not put any sell orders up, so they can't really do full like marketeering, but they could fulfill buy orders. So they would be able to sell a little bit, but not actually play the market. Then I think you can make a system there where people are still encouraged to go to Amiga eventually, but they have the opportunity to really play the game, even if it is restricted. But, I remember starting EVE Online back when you had the trials. And, you couldn't create a corp, you couldn't use contracts. There's a load of things you couldn't do, but for a month, you fly a Atlantic ship and try and fit lasers to it because you didn't know what you're doing. But having that freedom is really yeah, you didn't have to sell the game at that point. You're just so busy trying to work it out and see what you can do with it. You're like, yeah, just take my money. I think that they have the opportunity to take that essence, the free-to-play part, and really drive sales forward once people kind of invested into it, and yeah, for $5, it's a good deal.
Okay, and what do you think about that, Swede? What do you reckon about the what Soapy McTwatface just said?
I do agree in parts that alphas need some access to industry, only to introduce them to the concept, right?
Yeah.
With heavy restrictions, I agree, because we don't want that flooding of the market. I think they should be allowed limited access to the markets. I saw your suggestion about having them only have access to high sec and low sec instead of null sec, but I think it needs to be a bit more restrictive than that. Actually, I think limiting the number of slots they have and the amount they can trade per day. I am a bit not disturbed. I'm a bit concerned about the fact that NetEase is already wanting to put down heavy restrictions against RMT without actually seeing the
Thinking
effect
about
of it. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm all for having a plan for it, but they're not just planning for it. They're actually taking measures before it's even shown to be existent, because the game isn't out. But they're taking fairly drastic steps, saying that it's against RMT or part of it, but we don't know yet. No one does.
But we know this already by NetEase, because they've done this before with other games.
I mean, they had to. CCP must have gone through something with the launch. If you jumpstarting an economy from nothing, which is completely player built, especially to begin with, you need some form of safeguards that it can't be heavily abused. And sure, we don't have all the facts now, but I think especially at launch, I'd rather have something slightly too restrictive for the long run, but still open enough to draw people in, and then once we have facts to go with, to reduce it from there.
It's a good point. It's definitely a good point. What do you reckon, Lounge?
Sam, I actually have a question. Are there restrictions on alpha pilots? Is it to prevent foreseeable botting and multi-boxing? Is that what that's for?
That's what their idea of it is. There's going to be other reasons as well, but it's definitely to lower the risk of RMT in EVE Echoes.
All right, I figured that's what it was. I could see that being an issue, especially with Android and stuff. You could probably run like 20 accounts or something on one computer.
Yeah. So can I just let's see. Marco Polo Darkstar put something in chat asking if the high sec invulnerability and intention not to police botting or blue stack concern me. Said it looks like a perfect economy storm. And if we can't blow them up in high sec, do we want them flooding the market? Now, I haven't seen anything about that they wouldn't police botting, or I think they have said that they will allow emulation.
Yes.
They wouldn't. Yeah. So
it's
they
not being
wouldn't take
supported, but they're allowing it. Like it's
Yeah.
that if you have a problem emulating the game, they won't come and help you.
Yeah.
What about sync clicking? Have they said anything about that?
What, the input broadcast?
Yeah.
Instant ban. If you get
Yeah.
caught doing that,
Ooh.
you'll be banned forever. They already banned They already banned 2 people that I was talking to in the beta for their input broadcasting shit, and they're not going to be even playing after. And they got permanently banned in the beta for it.
So that's 2 different things. Having the emulation, which personally I'm happy about because I want to be streaming it, and doing it emulation is a lot easier than from my phone. But the multi the input broadcasting, that is an issue that they should and will take action against, and that's very good. The question is how they will find these things. If they have some better way than EVE Online to detect these things, because EVE Online, as much as they fight against bots and they've done a lot for it, EVE Online still has a lot of bots.
I mean, recently they got taken, like they did a massive bot, get rid of every bot off the server type thing. Like I never thought they'd actually ever do it, and then they did, which is insane. Like I really thought they'd never do that. Let's take out all the bots off the server. It really drops it down. So if we want to do one last point, because we're actually cutting way into the amount of time, we talked way too much about certain things. It was having Ashtarothi on here. Is a very knowledgeable EVE Online player, and he has a lot of information on the backstory and stuff. I'd love to work with him on some of the Yangjing stuff, but because there's not any information and Echoes is actually creating that stuff. If Crazy, would you like to put your Twitch in the chat? And if Gecko, if you want to put your YouTube in the chat and any of your social medias, get people to follow you and stuff.
That's fine. Do we have permission to post links so we don't get banned?
I think Nina might ban you.
Excellent. Nina, swing that ban hammer. Right. Yeah. So I'm a very new streamer. I've just started out. There's a lot of work to be done, but EVE Echoes is definitely going to be a big part of what I do going forward.
Amazing, amazing. Lounge and Soapy McTwatface is going to be playing a lot of time with us later on. You'll be seeing a lot of them probably ganking shit on my channel, probably ganking me most likely, but we'll see.
I can only hope.
If it moves, I'll keep it.
I'll keep your corpse warm for you.
If you ever get my corpse, I think I'd actually just die. I think I'd just stop playing the game. But I won't be exploring, so you won't have to kill me. It's fine.
Oh, it don't matter. I'll find it.
Don't leave high sec, Sal. Stay safe.
No, I'm not. I'm gonna be leaving high sec. I'm gonna be living out in low sec 0.1. So I'm just gonna move you guys out of the channel. We're gonna drag Ashtarothi, Doomsy, and Fish back in for any community questions. Okay, guys, is that alright with you?
No.
Yeah, sounds good.
I want to
for
thank
having
you
us.
all. Thank you all for coming on. I'll definitely send me a message afterwards, and we'll talk about doing some other stuff later on. Definitely Crazy Swede and Gecko for your YouTube stuff and your Twitch stuff. Okay.
Will do. Thanks, man.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Right, guys. So now it's question time for myself.
At least 2 different games.
Sorry, Ash.
Hey.
Dragged you back in it. My apologies.
Whoa.
Just dragged you all in.
We're just all having a conversation about
I've been booshed.
race and
I just boosted everyone into the channel. So we're having actually question time for all the viewers. So if anyone has any questions for any particular person that is here now, we have Ashtarothi, Doomsy, and Fish. It seems that Sam Brigg is actually having problems and the whole Twitch website is actually unresponsive for him.
technology. We said how many EVE players does it take to get a stream working properly?
It was like, I don't know what's today. Something's wrong with Twitch, but it's Saturday night, man. So, and it's starting to get to the time where people are coming home from work in the US and stuff like that. So,
N+1. That's the answer.
True enough. True enough. I actually have a question for you. Actually, you're going to be playing Echoes.
I was just answering that. That was the question I was answering in the other chat. I very likely will be. It's all dependent on whether or not I can get a device that can do it in a easy manner. Preferably if I can get 2, because if I could play it with my son, then that would be pretty awesome. He's getting right to that age where he might be functional enough to do that.
Cool. It's gonna be. I mean, they've just released. Do you use Apple or Android?
Android. Yeah.
Okay, so it's gonna be like we haven't been given what we like the actual breakdown of what works and what doesn't work yet on the Android, but we have a list of we can use iPhone 5 up, and iPhone 5 is actually a piece of shit. So being an Android user, you should be fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm probably just gonna have to get a device either way. This just like for one reason or another, I don't have any modern devices at the moment besides like my super chintzy phone. So this just is gonna push it across the edge. Probably ask for it for my birthday, which is in August.
Dude, 2 words: refurb tablet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've been looking into that. It's just so I'll be honest with you. With chapter 3 going on and with everything happening, like
Yes.
my attention and efforts are just pegged across the board. So there are so many things that are like on my agenda to address or deal with that if it isn't needed to be done this weekend, I'm not addressing it for the most part.
True. Yeah. What do you guys do? So, Fish, you're definitely coming in. You're with OBS. Doomsy, you're leading opposing force, one of the largest alliances currently. Do you think it's going to be good from the start, or we're going to have issues? That is the question. Are we going to have server outages and all kinds of shit?
Oh, there's going to be so many issues. I think there's going to be tons of war, tons of chaos. I think everyone's going to lose sleep. I think it's going to be stressful fun for the first few months as everyone adjusts. That's my prediction.
G is going to crash for sure, but that's why I'm not going anywhere near it. I'm getting in the game. I'm starting up an Amar character because fuck the Mimitar. And I'm going to fly into 0-1 lowsec in a pocket and just disappear. I will get as much ISK as I can. I'll start building up as much of an infrastructure as I can in that area, and I'm staying the fuck away from highsec. Basically just going to be my job.
Hate all you want on Minmatar, but you mention them in every single stream you have.
Because everyone's Minmatar, so I have to. Like,
Which
I
I thought everyone was against Minmatar when I came in. That was one of the reasons I chose them. It's like, you know, go with the road less traveled.
I mean, Ash, I would say Minmatar is probably one of the favorites, right?
Well,
on a lore side of things.
The Mimitar are probably one of the most quote-unquote good guys. But also, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, their tribe has a lot of political chaos to it too. It's just a little bit harder to understand than like corporate espionage or corporate intrigue of the Kaldari or the espionage of the Glente or the Game of Thrones of Amar.
Yeah, the Game of Thrones of Amar, but like I can see like a lot of people. So in Echoes, I get a lot of shit for wanting to play Amar just because of the slavery. Like they hate it. Every time I'm just like, you're a scumbag and blah blah blah, and like everyone seems to want to go Minmatar in Echoes for some reason. Like it's
as long as people properly understand that God created us all and created the Amar to be the chosen people, and that all are meant to serve the Amar, and the lost must be redeemed and taught to understand their true place in the universe, and thus the will of God may be manifest.
I think you'll be happy to know that Empress Jamil is still alive in Echoes.
That's actually terrifying on a whole nother level, actually, given my theories about where all this is going.
Empress Jamil is I confirmed in the game. I found her. Like they're talking about her in one of the missions. They're like, Empress Jamil will love you for blah 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 doing this and all kinds of stuff. So like she's in the game, and they don't have to worry about the book fucking with Echoes and then having to change and kill her off just to keep canon and all. I don't even know what happened then.
So just by the way, that isn't a change in canon for the record. Like all of this is actually like I just had a conversation with Delegate Zero on the stream last week or earlier this week, and it was all about how all of this lore chains together. So that is actually an interesting question to me, which is how if Jamil is in Echoes and the Empress, what led her to become Empress?
I have not a clue.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Like the Jamil's story of becoming Empress is very much bound to the other and all of those other things. But if they're going to be exploring more of the Talican as opposed to the sleeper, or sorry, the Yanyong as opposed to the Talican and the sleepers, then what do you do with this character? They could just say like she was elected rightfully or whatever and move on, hand wave it away. But it'll be interesting. And this is one of the things I'm going to be paying attention to very, very closely is what are the differences and what do those differences potentially mean for each other? Because there's plenty of mysteries. And so seeing what the difference between the two is and the impact of those differences might help us understand each universe a little bit better.
It's the way they're doing it is pretty insane right now with the so with the one of the ancient factions coming back, but crossing over from one universe to another, and then was it 14,000 years in the future coming back through? I don't understand. I don't know what they're doing with it. I don't know what they're gonna do with it. I hope it's gonna be okay. Like I'm hoping that they've actually been around. Because the Jove were about for ages, just cloaked up, watching everyone, right?
Well, so the Jove went through multiple iterations, and the Jove that we know today are known as the Jovian Directorate, which is actually the third Jovian Empire, and they migrated to what is now Jove space. But the first and second Jovian Empire actually existed within the Heaven constellation.
Yeah.
But that being said, what I think that they're going with here potentially, just based on what I've taught, what CCP has said outside of the context of any of the games, like at eVegas or anything like that, plus what we're seeing here is the potential of EVE Online being seen, or like the New Eden universe, as being a multiverse. And there are multiple realities. How these realities relate with one another is not quite clear yet. It seems as if the Abyss may be some form of boundary point between these realities. And so it could be that the most powerful races, the Talican, the Yanyong, and now the Jove, have all devised a way to move to a different dimension in the same way as they've moved to Anoinkis, wormhole space, or moved to the Abyss. Especially since the Triglavians refer to an area called the Domain Bujan, which is not the Abyss. But is like their home. So if they were like, say, banished to an alternate reality effectively and are now trying to punch their way back, then that kind of explains a little bit about the EVE multiverse.
Yes.
And so if the Yanyong are just one of the groups that have found a way to travel between these different realities, then they could have just left to a different one and now are arriving in this reality, the Echoes reality. And what this allows CCP to do is that later on, if all goes well, they can have something like, for instance, I don't know, the Triglavians collecting a whole bunch of stars and turning them into giant solar collectors in order to create a massive multi-star constellation gate to rip a massive hole in space-time to basically collide two universes together.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be something that's like, I hope they don't fuck up, is my main point.
I want to be clear. I'm not saying that that's what's happening, but what I'm saying is that CCP is clearly putting that in their back pocket, right?
Yes.
They've hinted at it, they've suggested it. So if all goes well, they can later like bridge these things together through this, like these ideas of tears in space-time and such.
True enough. There's a good question in here in the chat. How likely do we feel that Echoes is going to, so they've been given this little bit of information that they might try to incorporate some things from EVE Online to EVE Echoes and merge and mash some stuff together. Do you think that's just going to be on a lore front, or do you think they're going to go a little bit further?
I hope they go further, personally.
I think they were just talking out their ass, to be honest, when they said, it could be. I think it was a marketing strategy.
I think that just from what we've seen as being different about Echoes versus EVE, not just in the UI or anything like that, but there are some design choices that they didn't have to make.
Yes.
But they made about Echoes almost as if they were redesigning it from scratch, knowing what they know about EVE now, right? So certain things that are changes that would be intolerable in EVE Online are just woven into the fabric of Echoes.
Yes.
And so because of that, I think that it would behoove CCP and NetEase to use echoes as an opportunity to experiment with things for Eve and vice versa, right?
Yes.
So rather than try to copy or model just full whole cloth, be like, well, if this worked here, then maybe it'll work here, and vice versa.
It's true. It's very true. Right, so actually what we have now is all we have time for right now. I've got to go and make sure my son is put into bed, and we've kept 20 minutes over what I normally wanted to do anyway. But it's been fun, and we've had Ashtarothi on here, a very well-known EVE Online player and content creator. Make sure you go, is it Twitch and YouTube or just Twitch?
I do have a limited YouTube, but like Twitch is my major effort, yeah.
Okay, do you want to post that into the chat? Make sure you put a follow on for Ashtarothi stuff. Does some really, I've been watching him for ages. I can't even believe he's actually on a Twitch that I'm running. But
actually, I do
connecting.
I did want to say thank you very much for having me here, and also thank you so much for your lore videos. I haven't gotten to talk to you about this directly, but I've actually shown your lore videos to other people within the EVE lore community as an example of see, look, the Echoes people figured it out. Why can't we do it? You know?
See, that's what I was saying, Ash. I literally told him his lore videos were epic because I feel like Sob's videos give such a great crash course on EVE. So people, when I'm introducing people to EVE and I'm like, hey, just check out this guy's videos, and it's it's easier for them to wrap their head around it. Because when I first got introduced just to EVE Online itself, it was oh my God, how much am I going to have to? People were giving me books and essays, and I was having to watch all these videos. It was so overwhelming. I was like, holy shit. So Sovereign freaking did it where he broke down the lore that makes it really interesting. And it's not, it's not going to take you a bunch of hours. It's really nice. I think he did a great job on that.
I tried to get as much of the important information within the lore as possible, whilst not trying to trim off the baggage, but not having information that wasn't as needed to understand the core of what each faction was. That's basically to make it easier because I mean the lore of EVE can be an absolute nightmare to run around. It's fucking all over the place.
Don't say.
It's just an endless wiki page, just click here, go here, and there's something over here. It's kind of hard to follow.
But if everyone in the chat ever gets the chance to read the Chronicles, the EVE Chronicles, I'll put the link in the. There's some amazing writing there, but it's such a clusterfuck that is so confusing.
Fiction.eveonline.com. Fiction.eveonline.com.
Fiction.eveonline.com. Go check it out if you're interested in any of the stories. They have mini stories. Then it's not written in the way that you'll have the name, how long they've been around for, blah. They tell little conversations. They have all kinds of it's really, really interesting. I love it. It's the best way that I've seen it in a game done so far without it actually being in the game itself, written, looking for books and stuff, in Elder Scrolls, for example, is another good way I really like of the way they do lore. But outside of a game is one of my favorite ways of doing it.
The Triglavian lore is far closer to that. Almost everything we know about the Triglavian is through in-game item descriptions and such.
See, I haven't done enough checking on the Triglavians yet, which is why I didn't do a video on them. Also because they won't be in Echoes at all. So that's going to be a weird one. But I'd love to actually, if you have any information on that, please DM that to me. I'd love to actually read up some proper stuff on the Triglavians. They're very interesting.
Sure thing.
Right, so Fish, thank you for coming on. Doomsy, thank you all as
Thanks
always.
for having us.
No worries.
Of course.
You guys are always welcome on here. You know that. And I want to thank everyone in the chat. I want to thank everyone for the follows and the subs. It really made me feel happy today when the subs were going on and everyone was talking. It's really good. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. And I think that's all we have time for today. I've got to go put my son to bed, so wish me luck. It's going to happen or not, depending on how much energy his granddad left in him. We'll see how it goes. Make sure to follow on the YouTubes and on the Twitches of... Did you put it in there? Your Twitch?
Oh, I mean, I just 07'd, but you can just use my my name to link to my Twitch, but I can get it for you. Hold on. Oh, actually, I have an even better one. Ashtarothi.live.
Ooh, show off.
Yeah, fancy.
Okay, let's put that in. There we go. Make sure to follow. He's got a lot of good information, a lot of good times, and hopefully we can do a lot of work together in the future because there's going to be a lot of new stuff coming out that we can maybe cross over on the whole lore front, which I think will be really interesting. Well, guys, thank you very much, and we'll catch you later. Fly safe. Avoid local chat scams, and avoid the off-topic chat of EVECO's Discord. Have a good night.
Have a good one.